The acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, and two other top DHS officials should be on the way out, according to Democratic leaders in Congress. New opinion from the Government Accountability Office finds their appointments were illegal. GAO says the appointments in question violated the Federal Vacancy Reform Act and the Homeland Security Act. Ricardo Pitts-Wiley is a partner at the Federal Practice Group. Tom Spulak is partner at King Spalding, LLC. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me. Ricardo, you first. What's your takeaway from the opinion rendered by the Government Accountability Office?
I think it was a very measured decision. GAO does not have the enforcement capability to follow through on the consequences of these illegal appointments. But GAO's decision will certainly be utilized by several plaintiffs right now that are bringing cases against the Department of Homeland Security. So this will certainly help.
Tom, what was your takeaway from the opinion, the language GAO used, the citations they made, anything like that?
I think from a legal perspective, the GAO opinion really stands on its own. The GAO has the authority to evaluate appointments that were made under the Vacancies Act. You know, it's important, I think, to know that the GAO is non-partisan and, generally does not gets criticized for its positions. I think they laid out the opinion well. I think it's clear that the DHS made a mistake. Secretary Nielsen, had the authority to change the order of succession. She had done that back in February of 2019, did it again the day before she resigned. And I would say that due to an unfortunate error, she did not provide for McAleenan to succeed her. She could have done that, and that is DHS's response. They said, well, by doing that, by swearing him in, she, for all intents and purposes, you might say, or a de facto basis, amended her order of back in February 2019, laying out the order of succession. But she didn't do that. There's no doubt that she had the authority. She didn't. They erred, and I think now they're paying the consequences. But as our other guest said, this is not self-executing. It's not as though this report itself can result in any changes. Congress can act, but probably more likely what will happen is plaintiffs, impacted plaintiffs of actions taken by the improperly appointed officials will go to court and try to have those actions set aside. And in doing so, then a court will rule on whether the appointments were proper or not.
Ricardo, two terms that Tom used there that I think are important. The fact that this was, the DHS is arguing for all intents and purposes, this was what it was. What does one do the next time that there's a situation like this, whether it's DHS or another agency, to not get into this situation in the first place? What does one do to make sure that one gets it right next time?
Every federal government agency has to follow their own order of succession plan. It's important to note here that, the 1998 Federal Vacancies Reform Act was designed to provide the exclusive vehicle for temporarily filling vacant advice and consent positions, and to try and prevent, the undue delay in a president submitting nominees for the Senate to confirm him or her. The Homeland Security Act actually carved out an exception to this particular rule. So the Homeland Security has the ability to change their own order of succession. The other speaker is absolutely correct. Nielsen made a mistake in not properly revising the order of succession before she resigned. But I really think there's a bigger problem here that's afoot for agencies, which is the Senate is supposed to provide checks and balance on our executive functions here. And when you have federal government agencies that are trying to avoid those checks and balances, it really puts the public, I think, in danger of there being extremist views or views that are outside of the mainstream that are, impacting all of us in terms of our security. So in terms of what, an agency should do next time is follow the rules.
Tom, we have about a minute left. Is it as simple as that? Is it as simple as following the letter of the law rather than, it sounds like DHS thought it was fulfilling the spirit of the law, and it turns out that it wasn't fulfilling the letter. Is it as simple as just doing exactly to the letter as the law says, do you think?
No, I do. I mean, we are a nation of laws, and these are not statutes that are hard to follow. And in fact, up until that last day, Secretary Nielsen had in fact been following those. So I think agencies, obviously should pay attention to the statutes that relate to them. And I also think that sometimes it's the agencies and sometimes it's the push from the administration, who the administration would like to see leading an agency or department, and that can certainly complicate matters.
Tom and Ricardo, thanks very much for your insight. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.